Some mysteries are so strange, so heartbreaking, they stick with you forever. Imagine this. It's Christmas Eve, 1945. A family goes to sleep. The house is full of holiday cheer. But by morning, the house is gone, just ashes, and 5 of their children have vanished without a trace. This is the story of the Sodder children, and it's one of the most haunting unsolved cases in American history. So let's set the scene. It's December 24th, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. The Sodder family is, for all intents and purposes, complete. You've got George and Jennie Sodder and their 10 kids. The house is just buzzing with that Christmas excitement. You can practically feel it, right? But that joy, it was about to be shattered. Because by the time the sun came up on Christmas morning, 5 of those 10 children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jennie, and Betty, would be gone. Not just gone from the house, but seemingly vanished from the face of the earth. So how in the world does a perfect Christmas Eve turn into an absolute nightmare? Well, as the family settled in for the night, a series of bizarre events started to unfold that, to this day, nobody can fully explain. It started around 1 in the morning. George and Jennie suddenly wake up and the house is just thick with smoke. They do what any parent would do. They grab the 4 kids who are sleeping downstairs with them and scramble out into the freezing night, fully expecting the others to be right behind them. But they never came out. The 5 older children, aged just 5 to 14, were all sleeping upstairs. And as the flames grew, sheer panic set in. George realized his kids were still trapped inside that inferno. Now, what happened next is what turns this from a tragic house fire into this enduring, chilling mystery. See, it wasn't just the fire itself. It was this cascade of strange failures that all happened at once. It just feels almost deliberate. Okay, just think about this sequence of events for a second. First, George runs to get his ladder, the one he always keeps propped against the house, and it's gone, missing. Then he tries to start his 2 work trucks to pull them up to the window, and neither of them will start, even though they were running perfectly just hours before. And to top it all off, the phone line was dead. Cut. I mean, come on, this isn't just bad luck. This is a series of roadblocks that made any kind of rescue totally impossible. Because of all this, it took an agonizing 4 hours for help to arrive. A neighbor finally had to drive into town to track down the fire chief. 4 hours. And by the time the fire department finally got there, it was way, way too late. The family home, which had been so full of life just a few hours earlier, had been reduced to nothing but a smoldering pile of ash. As investigators started sifting through the rubble on Christmas morning, they were about to uncover the one fact that would come to define this whole mystery: the complete and total lack of any human remains. And here's a really crucial forensic detail you have to understand. Even in the most intense house fires, human bones don't just vaporize. They char, they become brittle, but they survive. There absolutely should have been something left of 5 children. Yet, after days of combing through every inch of that ash, they found absolutely nothing. No bones, no teeth, not a single fragment of human remains to prove that those 5 kids had died in that fire. And this is where the story just splits into 2 completely different realities. On one hand, you have the official explanation. It was an accidental fire, and it was just so intense that it completely cremated the bodies. A conclusion, by the way, that a lot of fire experts find pretty much unbelievable. But the Sodders, they believed something far more sinister happened. They were convinced the fire was just a diversion, a cover for the abduction of their children. And that conviction, that belief that their kids were still out there somewhere, it fueled a search that would last for the rest of their lives. They never rebuilt the house. Instead, they turned the site into a memorial garden and poured every single penny they had into finding their children. I mean, they did everything you could possibly imagine. They hired private investigators. They begged the FBI for help. They put up this now famous billboard along the highway with the kids' faces, offering a huge reward. They followed up every single tip, every possible sighting. But every single lead just went cold. For 2 decades, there was just nothing. Decades of silence and dead ends. And then, in 1967, a mysterious envelope shows up in their mailbox. It was postmarked from Kentucky, and it had no return address. Inside was a photo of a young man, probably in his mid-20s. And he looked a lot like their son Louis would have, all grown up. On the back, There was this cryptic handwritten message. Louis Sodder, I love brother. Could this actually be him? I mean, after 22 years of nothing, was this it? Was this the proof they had been so desperately waiting for? A sign that at least one of their children was still alive out there. Full of hope, the Sodders hired a private investigator to go to Kentucky and track down the source of this photo. The investigator went to check it out, and then he disappeared. Just like that. He was never heard from again. And this final, bizarre twist just left the Sodders with nothing but theories and a lifetime of unanswered questions. No kids, and now no answers about this mysterious photograph. All that was left was the big question. Why? Why would someone do this? Well, the main theory, the one that always comes up, revolves around George Sodder himself. He was an Italian immigrant, and he was very, very openly critical of Mussolini's fascist government back in Italy. Apparently, he'd been threatened before the fire by someone who didn't like his anti-Mussolini views, warning him that his house would go up in smoke and his children would be, quote, destroyed. This search truly became their entire life's work. George Sodder passed away in 1968, and he went to his grave still convinced his children were out there. Jennie wore black in mourning every single day until she died in 1989. And only then, after more than 40 years, was that billboard finally taken down. To this day, the disappearance of the 5 Sodder children is still an open, unsolved case. No one was ever charged with a crime, that photograph was never identified, and the mystery is just as deep today as it was back in 1945. So what do you think happened on that awful Christmas night? Was it a freak accident with an impossible series of coincidences? Was it a targeted abduction, a brutal act of revenge? Or is it something else entirely that we haven't even thought of? The vanishing of the Sodder children remains one of this country's most profound and heartbreaking questions.